There are moments when life feels like standing at the edge of deep waters, moments when the heart trembles, not from cold, but from the quiet fear that the next step may pull everything under, moments when the weight of the day gathers like storm clouds, pressing low, pressing close, pressing into the hidden spaces where worries collect. Sometimes the waters rise slowly, gently, almost unnoticed, and other times they rise all at once, rushing in with a force that steals breath and balance, leaving the soul wondering if it will stay afloat, if strength will hold, if peace will ever return. Tonight begins in that tender place, where the traveler stands at the shoreline of their own overwhelmed heart, watching the waves ripple beneath a dim evening sky, feeling the depth of everything carried, feeling the heaviness of everything unspoken, feeling the nearness of waters that feel too wide, too deep, too strong. Take a slow, deep breath. Let the chest rise gently, then fall even more slowly, letting the breath slip out like a soft sigh. Let the shoulders unclench, let the jaw loosen, let the muscles behind the neck soften and settle. Another breath, quiet and steady, allowing the thoughts to begin drifting, allowing the day to loosen its hold. If these stories bring you peace, take a moment to like this video. Subscribe for more nightly reflections, and share where you're listening from tonight. Your words and presence help keep this space warm and growing. Now, take another slow breath. Let's begin. The world around the traveler becomes calm as dusk deepens into night. The once bright sky now rests in hues of soft violet and fading gold. The air cools with a gentle breeze that brushes across the surface of the water, creating ripples that shimmer beneath the first quiet stars. The shoreline curves gently, as though the earth itself is offering a place to pause, to breathe, to gather strength before stepping into the unknown. The traveler watches the water move, smooth, rhythmic, unhurried, its surface glowing beneath the growing moonlight, its depths whispering memories of moments when the heart felt submerged, of seasons when trouble pressed in like rising currents, of nights when tears fell like small rivers seeking a place to rest. And in this tender quiet, a voice rises within the traveler's memory, a promise spoken not in thunder but in gentleness, a promise older than fear, a promise steadier than waves. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. The traveler lifts their eyes, the wind slows, the night grows still, as though creation itself pauses to honor the words of a God who keeps watch in every deep place. He does not say the waters will never rise, nor that the path will always remain dry, nor that the journey will always feel easy or clear. He says, I will be with you. Closer than fear, closer than uncertainty, closer than the breath moving softly through the lungs. A faint glow from the rising moon touches the traveler's face, warm, calming, steady, a reminder that even in growing darkness, light remains, hope remains, presence remains. The traveler takes one small step closer to the water's edge, feeling the cool mist rise, feeling the gentle pull of the unknown, feeling both the trembling of the heart and the whisper of divine nearness intertwine. Another breath moves through the body, slow, releasing tension that clings like wet fabric, releasing the pressure to hold everything upright, releasing the fear that drowning is inevitable. Rest does not depend on calm waters tonight. Rest depends on the one who moves through every wave with the traveler, the one who stands in the depths before a single step is taken, the one who holds the soul even when the body trembles. The shoreline becomes softer now, the breeze quieter, the sky darker, peace gathering slowly like water filling a gentle basin. The traveler gazes at the moonlit water, and in the reflection shimmering across its surface, they sense a presence standing near, not distant, not watching from afar, but close enough to steady the heart before the journey begins. The waters may rise, but they cannot claim what God holds. They cannot consume what God protects. They cannot drown the soul carried in everlasting arms. In the fading light, the traveler whispers inwardly, not words, but a soft yes, a willingness to step forward, not alone, never alone. For the God who formed the waters is already in them, already walking their depths, already guarding the fragile heart preparing to cross. The traveler breathes, deeper still, and the night breathes with them, a sacred rhythm forming between creator and created, a rhythm that soothes, a rhythm that steadies, a rhythm that whispers, "You will not be overcome." The traveler stands before the quiet, moonlit waters, but this is not the first time their feet have touched such a shoreline, not the first time their heart has trembled at the edge of something deep, not the first time life has led them to a place where the unknown stretches wide and the soul feels small beneath its weight. The riverbank carries memories, old echoes of seasons when the traveler faced currents that felt far too strong, moments when fear whispered louder than hope, when the waters seemed to rise without mercy, and the heart wondered whether God had noticed the trembling hidden in its depths. Tonight, the traveler feels those memories stir, gentle but real, not to frighten, but to remind, to recall how far the journey has come, to remember the places where God's nearness once met them in their weakness. The shoreline is quiet now, grass bending softly in the evening wind, stretches of smooth stones glowing with a pale touch of moonlight, ripples forming slow, shimmering trails across the surface of the water. It is here, in this sacred ancient place, that the traveler remembers the fear that once lived inside these waters. Fear of stepping into what could not be predicted, fear of losing footing, fear of not having enough strength, fear that the waters might swallow the fragile places that had not yet healed, fear that came quietly in long nights when waves of emotion crashed harder than storms, fear that rose in seasons of change and uncertainty, fear that whispered that drowning was inevitable. The traveler kneels near the water's edge, letting fingers brush the cool surface, feeling the gentle stir of the current against their skin, soft, fluid, unhurried, nothing like the harsh storms remembered from seasons past. And in this simple touch, the traveler understands, the fear did not come from the water itself, but from not knowing how to pass through it, from not knowing what lay beneath the surface, from believing they would have to face its depth alone. Tonight, that lie dissolves like mist. A soft breeze flows across the water, ruffling the traveler's hair, bringing the scent of night-blooming flowers carried from somewhere along the river's edge. The breeze feels tender, intentional, almost as though it carries memories of the moments when God held the traveler's life above rising waters before. The traveler remembers the nights when tears fell like rain, and God collected each one softly. The seasons when hope felt thin, and God breathed strength into empty places. The times when the heart felt submerged, yet grace lifted it again and again, not by removing the waters, but by staying with the traveler inside them. The riverbank holds these memories gently, not as wounds, but as testimonies, signs of how God showed up in moments when fear whispered the loudest. The traveler lifts their gaze toward the horizon. The moon rests low, casting its glow across the flowing water, turning it into a path of shimmering silver that leads into the unknown. There is no trembling now, only a recognition, a quiet, steadying truth. Fear may have lived here once, but it does not rule this place anymore. The traveler rises slowly, feeling the cool earth beneath their feet, feeling the strength that comes from knowing they are not alone, not abandoned, not forgotten in the deep places. The waters have not changed. Life's depths still stretch wide. The unknown still waits ahead. But something inside the traveler has changed. The heart now knows the truth that silence had hidden. God was in past waters, and he will be in these too. A faint glow moves across the river as a passing cloud unveils more of the moon's light, and the traveler senses the shift, a sense that the waters ahead are not here to harm, but to reveal God's presence in new ways, to show his faithfulness in places the traveler once feared to enter. With a slow breath, the traveler steps a little closer, the water catching the moonlight in soft silver waves, the air steady, the night calm, fear loosening, hope rising. They know now, the same God who kept them before, will keep them again. The same God who walked them through past depths, stands at the edge of these waters tonight, waiting not on the other side, but right here, right now, at the riverbank where fear once lingered. The traveler stands at the river's edge, moonlight spread across the surface like a soft, trembling veil, the night deep, quiet, full of the gentle sounds of water touching stone, and in this stillness, a single moment stretches wide before them. The moment before the first step. The moment when the heart holds both courage and hesitation in equal measure. The moment where the unknown waits just beyond the shoreline, whispering its silent invitation. The traveler breathes slowly, letting the cool night air fill the lungs, letting the shoulders soften, letting the body settle into the sacred quiet of decision. The waters ripple softly, reflecting the dim sheen of moonlight as though the river itself is breathing with the traveler. A long inhale, a long exhale, a rhythm shared between human and creation, between fragility and the one who crafted the depths. The traveler lowers their gaze to the shimmering surface. The water moves with a calm that feels both comforting and mysterious, not dangerous, not harsh, simply deep, a depth that holds both beauty and uncertainty, a depth that only becomes known by stepping into it. The first step is always the hardest. Not because the water is unkind, but because the heart must choose trust before it feels the evidence of safety. The traveler stretches a foot forward, not quickly, not confidently, but with the slow tenderness of someone offering their fear to God one breath at a time. The toes brush the water first, cool, surprising, alive, a sensation that awakens something deep inside, a recognition that the unknown, for all its mystery, is real, tangible, something that must be felt, not just imagined. Then the foot descends further, ankle, skin enveloped by the gentle current, the coolness climbing like a soft whisper from the river's heart, a reminder that entering the waters does not begin with drowning, but with a single quiet step of trust. The traveler pauses, the water swirling around their ankle in small, shimmering currents, the sound of it brushing against their skin like a steady, hushed welcome, the night around them holding its breath, the hills standing in silent witness to a moment that has unfolded countless times across countless lives, the fragile bravery of stepping into something beyond control. Fear stirs briefly, not as a shout, but as a quiet tremor beneath the ribs. What if the waters deepen too quickly? What if the current grows stronger? What if this becomes too much? But before the traveler can pull back, a warmth settles at their side, a presence that has followed them since the first breath of the night, a presence that stands closer than any shadow, a presence that carries the weight of the promise spoken long ago. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. Not watching from the shore. Not calling instructions from a distance. With you. The warmth strengthens, not heat on the skin, but assurance in the soul, a gentle pressure, almost like a hand resting near the heart, reminding the traveler that they are not stepping into the waters alone. The traveler allows another breath to move in, then leave, slower still, a breath that carries courage on the inhale and fear on the exhale, a breath shaped by the presence of the one who holds both the river and the traveler within his care. With this second breath, the traveler lets the other foot slide slowly into the water. The coolness wraps around both ankles now, a deeper sensation, a deeper step, a deeper trust. The river sways gently around them, whispering against their skin, not in a language of danger, but in the soft sound of movement that has existed since ancient days, movement that has carried countless burdens, received countless tears, heard countless prayers whispered by those who stepped into its depths before. The traveler looks ahead, the moon shining across the widening span of water, a faint path of light glimmering as though the heavens have laid a guide across the waves, not showing the full way through, but marking enough to take the next step, and the next, and the next. The traveler closes their eyes briefly, feeling the water, feeling the presence, feeling the quiet strength that now anchors their trembling heart. This is how crossing begins, not with certainty, not with bold confidence, but with one fragile step that trusts more in God's nearness than in the traveler's own strength. The currents may rise, the depths may challenge, the unknown may widen, but this first step, this gentle, trembling, holy step, is enough. The waters do not swallow. The waters do not pull. The waters part around the traveler in quiet acknowledgement, as though bowing to the presence of the one who walks there first. The traveler opens their eyes, and the night seems brighter, the moon bolder, the path clearer, because now they are not standing at the edge. They are in the journey, held, seen, accompanied by God Himself. The traveler stands with both feet in the gentle water now, cool currents curling softly around their ankles, moonlight shimmering across each ripple, and in this quiet threshold between shore and depth, something deeper begins to awaken inside them. A truth not loud, not forceful, but intimate, personal, a truth carried on the voice of the one who shaped them, who formed their heart long before fear ever touched it. I have called you by name, you are mine. The words do not arrive as thunder rolling across the hills. They do not split the sky with brilliance. They come as a warm hush settling gently into the traveler's chest, a whisper more familiar than their own heartbeat, a nearness that feels like home. The water rises slightly as the traveler steps deeper, but the fear does not rise with it, not as before, not with the same sharpness, because something stronger now surrounds every fragile place within the traveler's soul, identity. Not the identity shaped by past failures, or by voices that once spoke unkindly, or by moments when the traveler felt lost and unseen, but the identity spoken by God Himself, you are mine. The river glows beneath the moon, gentle currents swaying like a lullaby, and in that softened glow, the traveler feels something tender break open inside, a realization that the one beside them does not walk these waters as a distant ruler, but as a shepherd who knows every detail of the heart he guards. The breeze shifts, moving across the traveler's shoulders with a warm, steady breath, almost like the quiet touch of a guiding hand, a hand that has led them through dry lands, through shadowed valleys, through seasons when the night felt endless, a hand that never withdrew, even when the traveler doubted the nearness of God. Identity spoken by heaven has a way of quieting the deepest fears. When God says you are mine, no water can claim you. No current can define you. No depth can unravel who you belong to. The traveler steps further, water brushing higher along the shins, currents swirling more firmly around their legs. Yet each step feels strangely lighter, as though the river recognizes the presence of the one walking with them, as though the waters bow to his authority, as though danger loses its shape in the shadow of divine companionship. Memories rise like soft reflections beneath the surface, times when the traveler felt nameless, when the world felt large and indifferent, when they felt lost in the noise of other lives moving faster, louder, stronger, times when loneliness wrapped around the heart like a heavy tide. But each memory fades gently into the water, dissolving under the warmth of the truth now holding them. God has always known their name, spoken it with tenderness, guarded it with love, carved it into his keeping with a promise that cannot be erased. The traveler lifts their face toward the sky, stars scattered like soft lanterns across the dark, the moon casting a silver path forward, and for the first time in this journey, the traveler feels not just accompanied, but cherished. The water deepens another inch, the currents press a little more firmly, but the heart remains calm, steady, anchored in a truth deeper than the river itself. The God who walks beside them does not merely guide, he claims. He protects. He names. He loves. The traveler whispers inwardly, not with words, but with a surrendering breath that says, "If you are with me, I will not fear the waters." And the presence beside them seems to grow warmer, closer, as though God himself leans into the tender confession, wrapping the traveler in a nearness no river could ever undo. They are not a wanderer. They are not forgotten. They are not alone in these rising waters. They are a beloved soul carried through the deep by the one who calls them by name. The next step feels different, not braver, not stronger, but held. Entirely held. The journey no longer feels like passing through danger. It feels like moving deeper into the arms of God. The traveler moves deeper into the river, the water now swirling around the calves, cool currents pressing gently, rhythmically, as though the river itself is aware of the sacredness of this crossing. The night sky stretches wide above, the moon softens its light, and everything grows quieter, quieter in a way that reaches into the mind, into the breath, into the tired corners of the heart. The traveler pauses, feeling the pull of the water, feeling how it brushes against the skin, how it tugs ever so slightly with each movement, how it tries to sway the body just enough to remind them of its depth, its power, its unpredictability. And yet, even as the river presses, the soul does not fear drowning. There is something different tonight. Something stronger beneath the surface of the heart than the pull of any current. A presence, a warmth, a steady nearness that rests close like a reassuring hand just over the ribs, saying softly, "You are safe." The waters may rise, but they will not drown you. They may swirl, but they cannot claim you. They may surround you, but they cannot overwhelm the one who surrounds you first. The traveler watches the moonlight ripple across the surface, each shimmer moving like a thread of silver weaving through the water, reminding them that even in depth, beauty exists, even in uncertainty, light remains, even in deep places, God is already present. A small wave brushes higher along the traveler's leg, a momentary surprise, a reminder of how quickly life can shift, how swiftly emotion can rise, how suddenly circumstances can change, how the heart can be caught off guard by events it never expected. And yet, even this does not shake them. Not because they are strong, but because they are held. The traveler closes their eyes, feeling the water sway around them, feeling the night breeze move gently across their skin, feeling the steady truth settle deep within. There is a limit to what these waters can do. They can touch the body, but not touch the soul. They can rise around the legs, but not rise within the spirit. They can challenge strength, but they cannot break what God protects. The waters are real, the depth is real, the uncertainty is real, but God's promise is more real still. The breeze picks up, carrying the scent of wet stone and river grass, stirring the strands of hair at the traveler's temple, moving with the same tenderness as a whispered assurance, a reminder that the one beside them navigates every current with perfect understanding. The traveler breathes again, slow, calm, unhurried, feeling the breath rise, feeling it fall, noticing how the body relaxes even as the water surrounds, noticing how peace expands where fear once trembled. The river presses lightly, a reminder of its strength, but also a reminder that there is a limit God Himself has declared over these waters, a boundary the depths cannot cross, a command etched into the heart of creation: you may come this far, but no farther. The traveler opens their eyes, and the world feels different now, not because the water has changed, but because trust has begun to shift the weight inside them. Fear is no longer steering the journey, peace is. This is the miracle hidden in Isaiah's promise. Passing through the waters does not destroy. Passing through the waters reveals who walks with you. The currents swirl, but they do not take the traveler under. The waves rise, but they do not cover the traveler's head. The depths challenge, but they do not define the outcome. Because God is here, holding the soul higher than the water's reach, lifting the fragile places, guarding the breath, keeping the heart steady even when the legs tremble. The traveler takes another step, and another, feeling the gentle resistance of water parting around their movement, feeling the way each ripple yields to the presence of the one walking with them, feeling the way the river's pull loses its power in the nearness of divine strength. The waters will not drown you. They never could. Not when God Himself holds your life above the deepest places. Not when His presence becomes the air that fills your lungs. Not when His promise becomes the ground beneath your feet even in a river. The traveler inhales softly, and hope rises like warm light within, a quiet glow that whispers, you are safe in the deep because the deepest one walks with you. The water rises slowly as the traveler steps deeper into the river. The moonlight stretches across the surface in trembling silver lines. The night grows quieter still, and the river, once gentle against the ankles, now presses more firmly around the knees. A steady current, persistent, alive, a reminder that some parts of life carry a weight the soul cannot ignore. The traveler pauses, feeling the shift, the subtle increase in pressure, the way the water pushes, not harshly, but undeniably, against each step, as though testing their footing, as though asking whether the heart still trusts in the presence walking beside them. The current is not violent, it does not roar or thrash or threaten, but it moves with a strength that is unmistakable, a strength the traveler cannot control, cannot command, cannot predict. Just like the currents of life that surge in seasons of change, responsibilities that pile without warning, losses that come too soon, transitions that shake the ground beneath the feet, emotions that rise unexpectedly, catching the soul in their tide, moments when even standing still feels like an act of courage. The traveler feels the water tug at their legs, a gentle pull, then a firmer one, as if the river is revealing its depth little by little, and the heart recognizes the sensation. This is what it feels like when life becomes more than the soul can manage alone. A flicker of old fear stirs, not loud, not sharp, just a small tightening beneath the ribs, a memory of moments when currents once felt too strong, when the heart wondered if it would be swept away, when hope dimmed under the weight of too many unknowns. But before fear can grow, the warmth returns, the presence beside the traveler, steady, unwavering, a quiet strength that radiates outward in a way no river can resist. The water presses, but peace presses back. The current pulls, but presence holds. The depth increases, but the soul remains lifted above the reach of drowning. The traveler breathes in, feeling the cool air of night fill the lungs, then breathes out slowly, watching the breath drift across the shimmering water like a faint, silver thread. And with that breath, another truth surfaces softly. It is not the strength of the current that determines the outcome. It is the strength of the one who holds the traveler through it. The water pushes again, firmer this time. The traveler shifts their weight, body adjusting, feet steadying against the riverbed, legs finding balance even as the current flows unceasingly around them. And there, in that small, quiet moment, the traveler learns something holy. Strength is not the absence of pressure, it is the presence of God within the pressure. The current swirls, it moves with intention, with momentum, with a flow that cannot be stopped by human will, but the traveler does not panic. They do not rush. They do not brace in fear. They stand, not by force, but by the quiet, steadying touch of the presence beside them, a presence deeper than the river, stronger than the current, closer than breath. The moon casts a gentle radiance across the water, and the shimmer seems to follow the traveler's movement, almost as if the river itself recognizes that they are not walking alone, almost as if the current bows ever so slightly to the authority of the one who governs even the forces of nature. The traveler takes another step, the current pushes, but the heart does not falter, the soul does not fear, because every step is anchored in a truth that rises stronger than the waters. When you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. The traveler closes their eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of the water, feeling the firmness of the riverbed beneath, feeling the presence that holds them steady, and in that sacred stillness, the heart whispers a quiet yes, a yes to trust, a yes to the journey, a yes to the God who is not observing from the shore but standing within the current, matching the traveler's every movement, shielding every vulnerable place. The river may be strong, but God is stronger. The waters may pull, but God holds. The current may test, but God steadies every trembling step. The traveler exhales softly, peace flowing through their chest like warm light, and the journey continues, not because the water is easy, but because the presence of God is enough. The traveler steps further into the river, the water now rising around the knees, the current moving with a slow, steady insistence, the night deepening into a darker shade of calm, and though peace continues to hold the traveler, something else stirs quietly beneath the surface of the heart, something familiar, something old, fear. Not a scream, not a wave crashing in, just a whisper, a thin tremor, a memory echoing from deep within. Fear has a way of finding the soul in moments of transition, in the middle places, where the shore behind feels far, and the shore ahead is still unseen, where the traveler is too far to go back, but not far enough to feel the strength of arrival. This is where fear often speaks. Not to pull the traveler under, but to remind them of old wounds, old storms, old questions that once shook their steps. The traveler pauses, the river surrounding them with gentle but undeniable weight, currents nudging softly against their knees, moonlight glimmering in small threads across the darkened surface, and in the hush of the night, fear begins its quiet whisper. What if the waters deepen too quickly? What if the current grows stronger? What if the ground beneath becomes unsteady? What if strength is not enough? What if the promise breaks? What if?
Fear rarely needs volume. A whisper is enough.
A whisper can enter through memory, through old disappointments, through past moments when life felt heavier than the soul could bear. The traveler feels the whisper tug inside the chest, not violently, just enough to stir the heart, enough to question whether continuing is safe, enough to make the traveler aware of their vulnerability in these rising waters. But before fear can take root, the presence beside them draws closer, a warmth moving through the cool night air, settling like a soft, steadying hand over the heart, a reminder not spoken in words, but felt deeply, felt undeniably, you are not alone. Fear whispers from memory, but God speaks from nearness. Fear speaks of what once was, but God speaks of what is true now. The traveler breathes, a slow inhale, a slower exhale, letting the breath quiet the tremor beneath the ribs, letting the presence soothe the anxious corners of the mind, letting the truth settle in like warm oil poured over restless thoughts. The water pushes gently, not stronger, just present, but even in its steady movement, the traveler senses a boundary, a line the river cannot cross, a limit set not by nature, but by God Himself. Fear rises again, but softer this time, the echoes fading under the weight of peace growing within the traveler. For every what if fear whispers, there is a deeper answer, a stronger presence, a promise etched into the heart of God's people. When you pass through the waters, not if, when, I will be with you.
Fear cannot argue with presence. Fear cannot overpower the warmth standing at the traveler's side. Fear cannot drown a soul being held above every wave. The traveler opens their eyes, noticing how the moonlight dances more gently now across the currents, how the breeze slows, how the hills rise with a deeper kind of quiet, as though creation itself is honoring this moment, the moment when fear begins to lose its power. The river may be deep, the current may be strong, the unknown may stretch wide ahead, but the one who formed the river walks here. The one who commands the waters stands beside them. The one who calls the traveler by name lifts the soul above every trembling whisper. Fear's voice becomes a distant murmur, a fading echo swallowed by the night's gentle calm, overtaken by the presence that walks step for step through the waters, holding, steadying, guarding the traveler as they move deeper into the heart of the unknown. The traveler exhales softly, peace returning to its rightful place within, a quiet, tender peace that whispers, fear may speak, but it cannot lead. Not here. Not tonight. Not while God is this near.
The traveler moves deeper still, the river rising slowly, carefully, as though measuring its height against the one who walks beside them. Moonlight drifts across the water in long, delicate strokes. Currents wrap around the traveler's legs like winding threads of cool silk, and the night grows softer, softer in a way that quiets even the thoughts that tried to cling to old fear. The water reaches just below the traveler's knees now, its movement persistent, its strength undeniable, yet something unseen steadies the traveler with every step, something gentle, something sure, as though an invisible hand rests beneath their ribs, lifting, guiding, holding them above the weight of the waters. The traveler breathes deeply, feeling the cool night air move through their lungs, feeling how each inhale brings steadiness, how each exhale loosens the last threads of tension, how the very act of breathing feels supported, assisted, carried. The presence beside them grows warmer, Not heat that burns, but warmth that comforts, a warmth that wraps around the traveler like a soft, unseen embrace, a warmth that feels intentional, personal, protective. It feels like a hand. Not grasping, not pulling, just resting, lifting the traveler's core ever so slightly above the tug of the current. A hand that does not push against the water but holds the traveler steady within it. The traveler closes their eyes, and for a moment they simply feel the cool of the river, the warmth of divine nearness, the slight tension in the legs adjusting to the flow, the ease in the shoulders settling more deeply with each breath, the quiet miracle of being upheld where they expected to sink. This is the promise made flesh within the night, not that the water will disappear, not that the river will fall silent, but that God's hand will lift the soul above what once threatened to pull it under. The traveler takes another step. The water parts around them, rising slightly with the movement, but the presence remains, warm, steady, close, like a shield of gentle air surrounding the chest, like invisible arms supporting each motion, like love itself taking the weight that fear once carried. The current presses again, a firm nudge, a reminder of the river's natural force, but the traveler does not sway, does not stumble, does not lose balance, because the hand remains. Quiet, faithful, strong, not gripping, but guiding, not restraining, but holding above every danger. The traveler lifts their head, eyes meeting the path of silver across the water, a path that looks less like reflected moonlight and more like a trail laid out by the presence walking with them, a luminous reminder that no water, no trial, no grief, no unknown can rise above the hand of God. The breeze glides softly across the traveler's back, gentle, almost like reassurance, as though creation itself recognizes the holy nearness enfolding this moment, as though the night has become a sanctuary where fear dissolves and trust takes deeper root. The traveler remembers times when the waters felt too high, when life rushed too fast, when grief or loss or uncertainty forced them into currents they did not choose, moments when they felt like sinking was inevitable, moments when breath came tight and shallow, moments when the world felt heavy above their chest. But even then, even when the traveler did not feel it, this same hand held them. This same presence lifted them. This same God kept their soul above the surface, kept their breath steady, kept their hope alive, kept their heart beating through storms they thought would break them. Tonight they feel it fully, the gentle hand beneath the weight of the waters, the holy support stronger than every current, the nearness that breaks the power of fear, the love that steadies every trembling step. The traveler inhales once more, deep, slow, anchored, feeling the warmth expand through the chest, feeling trust settle into the deepest parts of the soul, feeling the miracle of being upheld by something stronger than the river's pull. The waters continue their motion, steady, persistent, but they hold no power to drown, because the traveler is not held by water, they are held by God. Supported, steadied, lifted above the surface of every depth. The traveler feels the river swirl gently around their knees, but as the water moves, another memory rises quietly from within, not of rivers, not of waves, but of fire. There are trials in life that feel like water, cold, overwhelming, pushing, pulling, rising slowly until the heart fears it might be submerged. And then there are trials that feel like flame, hot, consuming, pressing close with intensity, burning through certainty, illuminating every fragile place the soul would rather keep hidden. As the traveler stands in the moonlit river, the memory of fire comes softly, not as a threat, not as fear, but as a reminder, a gentle recollection of another promise woven into the same sacred verse: when you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned. The traveler breathes in the coolness of the river surrounding their legs, the warmth of divine presence surrounding the heart, and the two sensations blend together like a holy echo: water that will not drown, fire that will not consume. The night breeze shifts, carrying with it the faint scent of warm earth, as though the memory of flame lingers in the air, not destructive, but refining, like the soft glow of embers that warm rather than scorch. The traveler closes their eyes, feeling the river's gentle movement, feeling the presence beside them, feeling the rising truth that trials, whether water or fire, share the same boundary: they cannot destroy what God protects. Images flicker through the traveler's mind, moments when life felt like a firestorm, when circumstances pressed too close, when emotions burned hot within, when the heart felt surrounded by pressures that scorched the edges of peace. Times when anger crackled in the chest, times when grief burned like a sharp ember beneath the ribs, times when disappointment flared suddenly, leaving behind tender ashes, times when loss felt like a furnace too intense to bear. And yet, even in those fiery seasons, the traveler was not consumed. Not swallowed by despair, not destroyed by pain, not lost within the heat of suffering. Something, someone, always stood between the flame and the traveler's soul. A holy barrier, a divine shield, a presence that refused to let fire claim what God declared as his own. The traveler opens their eyes again, moonlight dancing across the water, the cool current pressing gently around the legs, and in that contrast, cool water, remembered fire. The traveler understands something deeper. God's promise is not limited to one kind of trial. Whether waters rise, or flames roar, whether emotions overwhelm, or circumstances burn hot, whether the heart feels submerged, or scorched, the same God remains. The same God protects. The same God holds the traveler above every force that tries to take more than it is allowed. A warmth passes over the traveler now, not from the river, not from the air, but from the presence walking beside them. A warmth that feels like standing near a hearth on a cold night, comforting, steadying, grounding, a warmth that does not burn, only reassures. This is what it means to belong to God. Trials may press close, but they cannot define. Hard seasons may rise, but they cannot break. Flames may heat the air around the soul, but they cannot reach the core held in divine hands. The traveler steps deeper into the water, feeling the current, feeling the coolness, but also feeling the warmth of God's nearness radiating through the night. A warmth that reminds them, no fire has ever touched their identity. No flame has ever destroyed their hope. No heat of trial has ever taken what God has covered with his love. The moon glows brighter, casting a shimmering path forward, a path through the waters, toward deeper places, toward the next part of the journey God has already walked before them. And in the traveler's heart, the truth rests gently like a glowing ember. There may be waters, there may be fire, but neither will overcome. Neither will define. Neither will touch the soul held closely by a God who walks through every depth and every flame with unfailing love. The traveler stands in the moonlit river, water moving with gentle insistence around their legs, memories of fire still warm within the heart, the night deep, soft, tender, and in this quiet middle place, where both water and memory press close, a deeper truth begins to rise, a truth that lingers like a warm hand resting upon the traveler's back.
God does not lead his children around the waters. He leads them through. Not detours. Not escape routes. Not shallow paths carved for comfort alone. Through. Across currents that feel uncertain, through depths that feel overwhelming, into places where trust must become more than words, where God's presence becomes more real than fear. The traveler breathes slowly, feeling the truth settle inside like a stone sinking into calm water, not heavy, but grounding, a weight that steadies the soul rather than burdens it. The moon hangs high overhead, casting a soft river of silver across the surface. The hills stand tall and silent. The breeze moves gently over the traveler's shoulders. Everything around them echoes the same quiet message: "You're not walking this alone." The traveler remembers seasons when they begged God to remove the deep places, to drain the river, to flatten the path, to make the journey easier, safer, predictable. But even then, God chose something better. He chose to walk through the waters with them. Step by step. Breath by breath. Heart to trembling heart. Because love does not stand on distant shores. Love steps into the deep. Love enters the waters first. Love goes where fear tries to hold the soul back. The traveler takes another step. The water rises just a little more, cool currents pressing more firmly. Yet a steady warmth surrounds the core of the traveler's being, a warmth that does not flicker, does not drift, does not weaken. The presence beside them moves in perfect pace, matching every step, matching every breath, walking through the water, not observing from afar, not sending comfort from the edges, but pacing alongside the traveler with divine gentleness. The traveler feels it now, a truth deeper than the river itself. God does not promise to keep us from the deep. He promises to keep us in the deep. The kind of presence that stays when the journey feels overwhelming. The kind of nearness that anchors the soul when currents pull. The kind of love that wraps around every fear like a warm shield. Quiet, steady, unbreakable. The water swirls higher, but the traveler does not sink. The current tugs, but the traveler does not sway. The unknown stretches wide ahead, but peace remains, soft, rising, present. Because the one who walked through seas with Moses, who walked through fire with the three in Babylon, who walked on stormy waters beside frightened disciples, now walks through these waters with the traveler. The traveler closes their eyes briefly, feeling the safety of this nearness, feeling how the presence strengthens their legs, steadies their breath, holds them firm even in moving depths. And in that quiet, holy pause, the heart understands. Victory is not the absence of deep places. It is the presence of God within them. Strength is not the removal of every challenge. It is being carried by a love that refuses to let the soul slip beneath the surface. Hope is not found in shallow water, but in the God who stands in the deep without fear, without hesitation, without leaving. The traveler steps again, not bravely, but willingly, not because the water has grown calmer, but because their heart has, calmed by the steady truth that God is not hurrying through this river. He is walking it with them at the pace of peace. Here, in the quiet middle of the waters, the traveler knows more deeply than ever. They do not cross the river to reach God on the other side. They cross it with Him. Held. Guided. Protected. Loved. The traveler stands in the deepening water, moonlight shimmering in soft trembling lines across the river's surface, the current pressing gently, steadily, like a reminder of the weight of this moment. And yet, beneath it all, something begins to rise quietly within the traveler,
a memory, a recollection carried not by the mind alone, but by the soul. For every step taken tonight, every breath drawn in trust, every trembling moment met by holy presence, is woven into a much larger story, a story the traveler has been walking for many seasons. The water sways around their legs, cool, rhythmic, unhurried, and in its movement, the traveler begins to remember other waters, waters that once frightened, waters that once overwhelmed, waters that once felt impossible to cross. The traveler breathes softly, letting the memories rise one by one, not to stir fear, but to reveal something deeper, something sacred. God brought them through every single one. A distant season surfaces first, a time when grief rose like sudden flood, when tears came without warning, when sleep felt fragile, when the heart ached beneath the weight of unspoken loss. And yet, even then, even in that depth, the traveler did not drown. Something unseen held them above the surface, gave them breath when breath felt thin, carried them through nights they feared would never end. Another memory rises, a moment when life shifted suddenly, when everything familiar changed direction, when uncertainty rose like a strong current around their ankles, pulling, tugging, unsteadying the steps. But God steadied them. Help found them in ways they did not expect, a word spoken at the right time, a door opening gently, a strength rising from deep inside, a calm that had no explanation but grace. The traveler's breath deepens, warmer, slower, as the truth spreads like quiet light through the chest. God was there in waters before, and if He was there before, He will be here again. Memories continued drifting upward like reflections in the river, times when the traveler felt lost, confused, afraid of the unknown, unsure which path to choose, moments when the waters of decision felt too deep and too wide, yet even then, a way appeared. Not always quickly, not always clearly, but gently, gradually, like dawn rising over a still lake, revealing just enough to take the next step. The traveler lifts their eyes toward the glowing horizon, stars shimmering softly above, their light small but constant, a reminder that God does not lead by spotlight, but by steady, faithful presence, by guiding the heart one step at a time, just as He has always done. The water presses again, a small, firm tug, but the traveler does not fear it, for something in the soul has grown stronger than the current. Memory. Memory wrapped in gratitude. Memory shaped by survival. Memory marked by divine rescue. The traveler runs a hand gently across the water's surface, feeling the cool resistance beneath the fingertips, feeling how the river moves but does not overwhelm, how it shifts but does not swallow, how it surrounds but does not define. And in that touch, the traveler whispers inwardly, "You were faithful then, you will be faithful now." The night around them grows incredibly still, as if the hills themselves lean closer to listen, as if the breeze slows its breath, as if creation honors the holy remembering of a soul recalling the goodness of God. Every deep place the traveler has walked, every river crossed, every trial endured, every night survived, was held in the same hands that steady them now. God does not fail halfway through a river. He finishes what He begins. He completes what He promises. He carries what He calls His own. The traveler takes another slow step forward, not because the water is shallow, not because the current has weakened, but because their heart has, strengthened by memory, anchored by truth, steadied by the God who has proven Himself again and again. The river ahead may be deep, but the God behind them has been deeper still, ever faithful, ever near, ever bringing them through every season that once felt impossible. The traveler breathes in, and gratitude rises like warm light within, a quiet glow that whispers, "You are the God who brings me through. You always have been, you always will be." The traveler steps deeper into the water, the current rising gently, swirling with a quiet persistence around their legs, the moon stretching long ribbons of silver across the surface, the night growing softer, warmer, more intimate, and within the traveler's chest, something begins to tremble, not fear, not doubt, but the honest recognition of human frailty. Weakness. Not the kind that shames, but the kind that tells the truth. The kind the heart tries to hide in daylight, but cannot hide in the still tenderness of God's presence. The traveler feels their knees waver, not dramatically, just a slight unsteadiness, a quiet reminder that no matter how much courage has grown tonight, the body is still human, the heart still fragile, the soul still learning how to trust. The water presses more firmly now, its cool touch rising with each step, not threatening, not harsh, but honest, honest about the depth, honest about the journey, honest about the truth that strength alone is not enough to cross these waters. The traveler inhales, a slow, steady breath, letting the air fill the lungs, letting the ribs expand, letting the weight of the moment settle in a way that feels strangely comforting. Because weakness, offered to God, is not a barrier. It is an invitation. The presence beside them moves closer, a warmth blooming through the cool river air, a nearness that steadies the traveler before another step is even taken, a quiet assurance that says, "You do not need to be strong for me to hold you." The traveler feels this truth rise from within like warm light spreading through tired limbs. Strength is not measured by how steady the knees feel. Strength is measured by the presence that carries what the traveler cannot. The water swirls around their legs, pushing with a slow, rhythmic weight, and the traveler feels the first true moment of surrender, not giving up, but giving over. Giving over the pressure to be brave alone, giving over the belief that they must stand perfectly, giving over the old idea that God requires unwavering strength to stay close. He does not. He never has. He stays because of love, not because of the traveler's stability. Another breath moves through the traveler, deeper, fuller, and something inside them loosens, a grip, a tension, a long-held fear that weakness would somehow make them unworthy of divine help. But here, in the cool river, under the quiet moon, weakness becomes holy. Weakness becomes the doorway through which God's strength enters fully. The traveler shifts their weight, feeling the wobble, feeling the water push, and yet, they do not fall. Not because they fought the current, but because the presence beside them holds them steady. It is gentle, never forceful, never overwhelming, just a subtle, unwavering lift, like a strong hand beneath the traveler's spirit, raising what would otherwise sink, balancing what would otherwise stumble, carrying what would otherwise collapse under its own exhaustion. The hills surrounding the river glow faintly under the moon's deepening light, their stillness reflecting the calm strength of the one who accompanies this journey, the one who does not grow weary, the one who does not falter, the one who stands unshaken even when knees tremble. The traveler's heart softens, a warmth spreading across the chest as they remember, strength was never meant to be something they forced. Strength was meant to be something God supplied. And He supplies it now. Quietly, tenderly, faithfully. The traveler takes a small step forward, the water rising slightly, the current pressing, but the fear of falling has faded, because they know, even if their knees fail, God's hands will not. Weakness has become a kind of worship, a kind of trust, a sacred yielding to the truth that they do not walk through these waters by the force of their own will, but by the steady compassion of a God who carries his children when their strength runs thin. Emotions gather softly behind the traveler's eyes, warm, quiet, not sorrow, but relief, relief that they no longer need to pretend to be unshakable, relief that God welcomes trembling, relief that the one who leads them through these waters knows exactly how to hold them in their weakness. The traveler exhales, a breath heavy with release, and the river seems to calm around them, not because the current has changed, but because the traveler has, resting more deeply in divine strength, surrendering more gently to God's support, trusting more fully in the presence that steadies every step. Weak knees are not a sign of failure tonight. They are a sign of nearness, God's nearness. God's strength. God's compassion holding steady beneath every trembling moment. The traveler stands in the deepening water, the river moving in calm but persistent currents around their legs, the night holding its breath with a quiet tenderness, and somewhere inside the traveler's chest, fear tries once more to rise, not loudly, not violently, but with a small, trembling whisper that slips through the cracks of human frailty. Fear often returns in this part of the journey. When the traveler has gone too far to turn back, but cannot yet see the other side, when the water feels steady but deep, familiar yet unknown, when the mind begins to ask questions the heart is too tired to answer. What if strength fades again? What if this is the moment the courage breaks? What if the waters ahead grow darker? What if the ground beneath shifts unexpectedly? What if? The traveler feels the whisper coil quietly beneath the ribs, a small tightening, a faint trembling, a shadow of the fears that once tried to drown the soul. But before the whisper can grow, before it can echo into the mind, before it can reach the heart, a different whisper rises. A whisper not born from memory, but from presence. Soft, warm, steady. A sound the soul recognizes instantly, not because of familiarity, but because of love. I am with you. The words do not come from somewhere above, nor from beyond the river, nor from the unseen horizon. They come from right beside the traveler, close enough to feel like breath against the heart, close enough to settle into the deepest, tenderest places within, close enough to silence the tremor before fear can take shape. The traveler inhales, and the whisper fills the breath like quiet light, warm, soothing, strong in its gentleness. The river presses against their legs again, a small surge, a ripple of strength, but it no longer feels threatening, not now, not while this holy whisper lingers in the air around them. The moon glows brighter overhead, casting shimmering light across the traveler's face. The hills stand silent and tall, as though honoring the moment. The breeze moves with a slower, softer rhythm, and everything around echoes the same holy truth: fear cannot survive where God speaks. The traveler takes another step, the water rising a little more, the current brushing more firmly against the knees, but the whisper remains, a warm, steadying presence tucked into every breath. The fear's voice fades, not because the problem has vanished, but because the presence has spoken. Fear thrives in silence, but it cannot remain where God whispers. The traveler's heart softens, a gentle warmth spreading through the chest like oil poured over tired thoughts, soothing the mind, relaxing the muscles, quelling the trembling places with a calm that feels holy. Memories try to rise, moments when fear ruled, moments when courage faltered, moments when the waves of anxiety grew too heavy to bear, but the whisper speaks again, I will not let the waters overwhelm you. And suddenly those memories lose their power. They become distant, soft, like shadows fading at dawn, unable to hold shape in the presence of divine reassurance. The traveler breathes more deeply, feeling the night grow warmer around them, feeling the river lose its sharpness, feeling the soul rest in a place where fear has no voice left.
There is no shout, no thunder, no dramatic display of power. Only the whisper. The whisper that carries more strength than storms, more authority than waves, more peace than the traveler has ever felt. A whisper that silences fear by simply being near. A whisper that steadies trembling knees with compassion. A whisper that fills the deepest places with a calm beyond understanding. The traveler lowers a hand into the water, feeling the cool surface fold around their fingers, feeling the gentle tug of the river, and the steadying warmth of the presence beside them. Two sensations, one cool, one warm, both real, both present, but only one defines the moment. The warmth. The presence. The whisper. The God who stays. The traveler lifts their gaze toward the moonlit horizon, and the heart whispers back, a soft reply carried on the breath, not spoken aloud, but felt deeply. I am not afraid, because you are here. Fear dissolves. Peace spreads. And the journey continues with a new steadiness, a new calm, a new trust, shaped not by the traveler's strength, but by the whisper of the God who walks through the waters with them. The traveler stands in the river's quiet depth, moonlight drifting like a soft veil across the surface, the current flowing with steady rhythm around their legs, and inside the traveler's chest, something new begins to form, a peace not born from circumstance, but from presence. It moves slowly, gently, like warm light pouring into cool water, spreading beneath the ribs, softening every tight place, relaxing every tired thought, quieting every echo of fear that once tried to rise. This peace does not come because the river is shallow. It does not come because the water has calmed. It does not come because the journey is easy. It comes because God is near. Near in a way the soul can feel. Near in a way no current can challenge. Near in a way deeper than the river itself. The traveler breathes slowly, letting this peace move through their lungs, letting it settle in the shoulders, letting it ease the heart into a new kind of stillness, a stillness that feels like being wrapped in soft, invisible arms. The presence beside them shines like a gentle warmth, not dazzling, not overwhelming, simply steady, simply sure, simply here. Peace begins to rise through the traveler's body, not like a rush, but like a soft tide, lapping quietly against the weary places, restoring what tension had once taken, lifting what burden had once pressed down. The river pushes again, a calm but undeniable nudge, yet the traveler hardly feels shaken, because something greater than the water now anchors the heart within, a divine calm, a holy quiet, a deep rest that no external force can undo. This is not the peace of still waters. It is the peace of God within moving waters. A peace that does not depend on what surrounds, but on who stands beside. A peace that holds the soul steady even as the river flows. The traveler lifts their eyes. The moon seems brighter now, the stars clearer, the night gentler, as if creation itself reflects the calm rising inside the traveler's spirit. Every part of the river, the pull, the flow, the swirl around the legs, feels less like a threat now, and more like a reminder,
The external world can move, shift, press, change, but the internal world, the soul held by God, remains still. Peace becomes a shield around the heart, not rigid, not hard, but soft and strong, a shield woven from trust, from companionship, from a presence that does not waver. The traveler remembers seasons when peace felt distant, when stillness seemed unreachable, when the world inside felt louder than the world outside, when sleep was elusive, when thoughts rushed, when worries filled every quiet moment. But tonight, no effort is needed. No struggle to calm the mind, no fight to find rest, because peace rises on its own, gifted, given, poured by the one beside them like gentle oil over the heart. The traveler lets another breath release slowly, feeling the tension dissolve, feeling the bones lighten, feeling the spine loosen, feeling the soul relax into something deeper than emotional quiet, spiritual rest. The water is still here. The current still moves. The depth still increases. But none of these shape the moment. Peace does. God's peace. The kind that stands stronger than fear, that steadies trembling thoughts, that cushions the heart in softness even in deep waters, that moves deeper than any river can reach. The traveler lowers a hand into the water, the cool surface wrapping around the fingers, but inside the chest, warmth remains untouched, a warmth that says, "You are safe not because the river is gentle, but because I am with you." The traveler leans into this truth, letting it seep into every fragile corner, letting it settle into every weary place, letting it become the foundation beneath every breath. Peace in the middle, peace in the depth, peace in the journey, peace because God is here. The water moves, but peace steadies. The night deepens, but peace glows within. The path continues, but peace leads each step. The traveler feels it now, a sacred calm that will carry them through the rest of the river, stronger than the current, kinder than the night, closer than breath. The traveler moves deeper into the river, the water rising with slow, measured patience, the current brushing against their legs with a rhythm that feels almost like breathing, in, out, a gentle pulse that mirrors the soft expansion and release of the traveler's own chest. The night has grown impossibly quiet, a quiet so profound it feels like a presence in itself, a quiet that does not come from the absence of sound, but from the fullness of peace, a quiet that feels alive, holy, deep. It settles over the traveler like a warm mantle, wrapping the shoulders, softening the muscles, smoothing the edges of every lingering worry, and in this deep quiet, something begins to happen. God speaks, but not in words. The traveler breathes slowly, feeling the breath fill the lungs like warm air settling into a still room, feeling the ribs expand without strain, feeling each inhale lift the heart gently, feeling each exhale loosen the last threads of tension that clung to the mind. This is not ordinary quiet. It is sacred quiet. The kind of quiet that exists only when God draws extraordinarily near. A quiet that does not require language, because presence itself becomes the message. The water presses higher, a calm but undeniable rise, cool currents swirling more freely around the traveler's legs. Yet inside, the traveler feels steadier, calmer, more anchored than they have felt all night. Stillness deepens. Not the stillness of a stopped world, but the stillness of a heart resting in divine hands. A stillness that sinks softly into the soul like warm light sinking into deep water. The hills surrounding the river stand silent and tall under the moon, their edges softened by the pale glow, their shadows stretching like gentle blankets across the land, quiet watchers of the sacred moment unfolding in the river's midst. The traveler closes their eyes, not to shut out the world, but to feel it more fully, to feel the cool water, the soft breeze, the presence beside them, the holy quiet moving like a slow tide around the heart. In this quiet, memories fade, worries release, even the internal chatter that once made sleep difficult falls away, as though God has reached into the deepest part of the mind and rested his palm upon its surface, steadying it, calming it, silencing every anxious ripple.
No words are spoken, yet everything is said. I am here. I am closer than the current. I am deeper than the waters. I am gentler than the night. I am keeping you.
The traveler feels these truths not as sentences, but as warmth, as softness, as a steadying presence breathing peace from the inside out. The water lifts slightly with each passing moment, not rushing, not threatening, simply rising in quiet honesty, yet the traveler does not fear it, not now, not while wrapped in this peace that anchors more deeply than the river flows. The breeze brushes gently across the traveler's face, carrying the faint scent of night-blooming flowers, and the soft rustle of leaves stirred by distant wind, all of it blending into the kind of quiet that nourishes the soul instead of leaving it empty. It is here, in this deep, sacred stillness, that the traveler feels something shift, not in the river, not in the night, but in themselves. The fear that once whispered has grown silent. The doubts that once trembled have grown small. The questions that once pressed against the mind have softened into trust. Because God is not just beside them in these waters, he is within them, in the breath, in the heartbeat, in the quiet that fills every space fear once occupied. The traveler stands gently in the current, feeling the water move, feeling the night hold, feeling the presence surround every inch of the journey, and they understand, this is the turning point. Not a loud revelation, not a dramatic rescue, but a quiet surrender into peace deeper than the river itself. This is the moment where trust becomes more than a step, more than courage, more than memory. Trust becomes rest. Rest in God's nearness. Rest in God's strength. Rest in God's unshakable promise. Rest in a peace that moves beneath the surface of everything life brings. The traveler exhales, a long, soft breath that carries the weight of years, letting it fall into the river like a quiet offering, letting it drift away with the current, letting the soul feel lighter, freer, more open to the gentle work of peace. The river continues to move. The night continues to stretch. The path ahead remains unknown. But the traveler is no longer unsettled. Because the one guiding the journey speaks without sound, and his silence is full of peace deeper than any water could ever reach. The traveler stands deeper in the river now, the water rising with a slow, gentle persistence, curling around their legs like cool ribbons of moonlit silk, moving with a rhythm that feels old as creation itself, unhurried, steady, sure. And yet, the deeper the water grows, the deeper the traveler's rest becomes. Not a rest of sleeping, but a rest of being held, being carried, being anchored in strength that does not come from within. The night has grown warmer, the breeze slower, the moon brighter, as if the world itself leans closer to watch how peace settles over a soul that trusts its maker in the deep. The traveler breathes in slowly, feeling the chest expand with warmth, feeling the breath drift out in a soft release, and as the air leaves their lungs, a sense of surrender rises, a surrender not of defeat, but of relief.
Relief that they do not need to hold themselves up. Relief that they do not need to be strong enough. Relief that they do not need to predict what lies ahead. Relief that the river doesn't demand perfection, just presence. Just trust. Just rest. The water rises another inch, cool, honest, pressing with gentle insistence against the traveler's knees. Yet the soul stays still, unshaken, settled deeply beneath the surface of God's strength. Strength does not feel like force tonight. It feels like foundation. Like something solid beneath the traveler's spirit, something firm enough to stand on even when the riverbed shifts, something steady enough to hold the traveler upright even when their own legs would fail. The presence beside them remains unwavering, a warm steadiness, a constant nearness, a quiet shield around the heart, a strength so soft it feels almost like breath, a strength so deep it feels like still waters beneath crashing waves. The traveler lowers their hand into the river, feeling the water slip between their fingers, cool, alive, yet noticing how none of it disturbs the peace within, none of it reaches the core where God now rests with them, holding every fragile place with tenderness. There were times, the traveler remembers, when they believed peace could only be found on the shore, when the waters were still, when life felt predictable, when challenges remained far away. But tonight reveals a different truth. Peace is not the absence of depth. Peace is the presence of God in the depth. Rest does not come from being far from the river. It comes from being close to the one who commands its boundaries. A soft breeze brushes the traveler's face, carrying the faint scent of wet stone and distant grass, bringing a quiet, grounding coolness, as though creation gently reminds them, you are safe here. Safe even as the waters rise. Safe even as the currents shift. Safe even in the middle of what once felt impossible. Because rest is not dependent on surroundings. Rest is dependent on God's nearness. And tonight, He is nearer than breath. The traveler's shoulders relax, muscles easing in ways they didn't know were tense, thoughts quieting more fully, breath evening out, heart slowing into a rhythm that matches the gentle flow of the river. This is what deep trust feels like, not effort, not strain, not trying to hold everything together. Deep trust feels like sinking, not into the water, but into God's strength. Leaning fully. Resting wholly. Allowing Him to hold what the traveler once held alone. The moonlight reflects softly on the surface, but the glow inside the traveler feels warmer, brighter, a quiet flame of divine calm that cannot be moved by external currents, a flame that rests and burns at the same time, steady, gentle, enduring. The traveler inhales again, slow, sacred, feeling the breath move deeper than before, feeling God's strength rise within like a tide of warmth, filling, supporting, sustaining. And as the river flows around them, the traveler realizes they are not simply passing through the waters, they are passing into God's rest. A rest that meets them here, in the deep, in the quiet, in the place where fear once lived, now replaced by peace deeper than they have ever known. The water moves. The night holds. The presence steadies. And rest becomes the air the traveler breathes. The traveler stands in the river as it rises slowly, the current brushing with steady rhythm around their legs, the moon shimmering across the surface like drifting silver threads, and within the traveler's chest, a new kind of surrender begins to unfold, not the surrender of fear, but the surrender of trust. It does not come suddenly. It does not arrive with fanfare. It simply grows, softly, quietly,
like dawn light stretching across still water, reaching the deepest parts of the traveler's spirit without forcing its way. The traveler breathes in, feeling the familiar coolness of the river, feeling the gentle warmth of the presence beside them, feeling how every inhale carries relief, how every exhale lets something go, something heavy, something that once felt essential to control, but no longer needs to be held. A thought rises softly. What if surrender is not falling, but floating? The traveler's muscles loosen, the spine relaxes, the shoulders drop into peaceful heaviness, and the soul begins to lean, not backward, not forward, but into God, into the gentle, unwavering presence that has followed every step of this river, held every trembling moment, lifted every fragile breath. The water reaches a little higher, cool swirls brushing above the knees, a depth that once would have frightened, but now feels strangely sacred, because the traveler no longer feels the need to brace against the movement, no longer feels the urge to resist, no longer believes they must stand in their own strength. The presence beside them, warm, steady, a quiet strength holding more than the traveler realizes, feels closer now than ever before, like invisible arms waiting, ready, not to push, but to carry. And the traveler lets themselves lean, just a little at first, a soft shift in weight, a gentle tilt of trust, a small surrender that feels like releasing a long, slow breath. The water pushes lightly, a steady nudge, but the traveler no longer resists, because resistance takes strength, and trust gives rest. The traveler allows more of their weight to settle into the presence beside them, and in that quiet movement, something beautiful happens. They feel held. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, but truly, as though unseen hands support the spirit from within, lifting, balancing, carrying what the traveler cannot. The night grows deeper, the stars spread wider across the sky, the breeze brushes softly through the hollow places along the riverbank, and everything seems to lean with the traveler, as if creation itself understands this holy surrender. The traveler remembers how tightly they once held everything: control, fear, expectations, their own fragile strength, trying to navigate depth with clenched hands and tired lungs. But tonight, those hands begin to open. Fingers uncurl. The chest softens. The mind loosens its grip. The soul releases the illusion that they must hold themselves together in the middle of deep water. Because they are being held, carried, lifted above every pull of the river. The water moves in gentle currents around their legs, yet the traveler feels lighter, not because the river has changed, but because surrender has. God does not simply walk beside them now, He carries the weight within them. The weight of fear, the weight of exhaustion, the weight of uncertainty, the weight of needing to be strong. All lifted, all held, all cradled in divine gentleness. The traveler feels the warmth rise again, a warmth that begins in the chest, spreads into the arms, softens the knees, moves down into the feet pressed against the riverbed, a warmth that whispers with sacred tenderness, "You can lean on me fully, I will not let you fall." The traveler inhales, and the breath feels freer. They exhale, and the release feels deeper. Every part of them rests, every part allows God to carry what once weighed heavy. This surrender is not weakness. It is not defeat. It is not giving up. It is trust so deep that the soul no longer tries to hold itself upright. It is rest so real that the body relaxes even in moving waters.
It is love so near that the heart finally understands. It is safe to lean. It is safe to yield. It is safe to be carried. And the traveler lets go, gently, quietly, fully, surrendering to the God who holds them, in the water, in the night, in the unknown, in every breath, safe, steady, carried. The traveler stands in the deepening river, water rising with a slow, tender honesty, moonlight spreading across the surface like a soft silver cloth, and within the traveler's chest, the surrender from before deepens into something even gentler, even quieter, even more sacred. It feels like drifting. Not away, not downward, but inward, into a rest the soul has been longing for far longer than it ever realized. The water swirls around their legs, cool currents tracing long, slow paths against the skin, yet the traveler feels lighter, almost weightless, as though the river itself has softened its edges in reverence to the presence holding them. A breath moves through the traveler, unhurried, deep, a breath that does not fight the moment, does not brace for the unknown, does not gather strength for the next step. Instead, it simply rests. It settles. It accepts the embrace of God that surrounds every fragile place within. The presence beside them grows so near, so gentle, so steady, that the traveler can no longer tell where their own trembling ends and God's support begins. The night leans in with quiet care, the breeze slows to a soft whisper, the stars appear brighter, and everything around the traveler feels suspended, held in stillness, as though time itself has paused to honor a heart being lifted by divine love. The traveler allows their body to loosen, shoulders dropping into deep rest, spine softening, knees releasing tension they no longer need to hold, arms hanging with freedom rather than strain. Every part of them yields, not to the water, but to the God who is keeping them above it. A warmth rises in the traveler's chest, slow, glowing, like gentle light filling a lantern from within, a warmth that reminds them they are not balancing on their own strength anymore. They are being held by something greater, something kinder, something infinitely steady. The river presses against their legs, a quiet tug, a small surge, but the traveler does not tense, does not prepare to resist, does not gather effort to remain upright, because they finally feel it. God is carrying not only their weight, but their worry, their fear, their exhaustion, their questions, their need to control. All of it rests now in hands far stronger than the traveler's own. The moon glows softly above, casting a gentle path of light across the rippling surface, the reflection moving gracefully with the current, like heaven guiding the river's steps, like God guiding the traveler's heart. The traveler closes their eyes, not out of fear, but out of trust, a trust so calm it feels almost like floating, like leaning back into the arms of the one who has walked beside them since the first breath of this night, like allowing love to lift them in a way their own strength never could. And in this tender surrender, a sacred truth rises within. They do not need to stand on their own. Not here. Not now. Not in these waters where God's presence is stronger than the current, closer than the night air, kinder than their own thoughts. The river moves, but the traveler is steadied. The water sways, but the soul rests. The current shifts, but the heart feels carried, lifted by a love that holds without strain, supports without pressure, sustains without pause. This is divine rest. Not rest the traveler must earn, not rest they must fight for, but rest given freely, rest breathed into them, rest held around them, rest that feels like being gently lifted above the deepest waters within. The traveler lets another breath release, a long, slow,
exhale that loosens everything still clinging to the edges of their spirit, and when the breath fades into the night air, the traveler feels it, the quiet miracle of being fully, completely, lovingly carried. Not stepping, not striving, not bracing, just resting in the quiet of God's embrace. The traveler stands in the river's gentle depth, the water steady around their legs, the moon painting soft ripples of silver across the surface, and inside the traveler's chest, peace rests like a warm glow, quiet, deep, anchored, held in the steady embrace of God's presence. But as the traveler breathes in, something shifts, softly, subtly, like the first hint of dawn brushing the horizon, a sense that the journey is beginning to change, not abruptly, not with force, but with a slow unfolding, a transition shaped by God's gentle timing. The water still moves around them, but the pull feels different now, less like resistance, more like invitation, as though the river itself is guiding the traveler towards something ahead, something promised, something prepared long before they ever stepped into these waters. The traveler lifts their gaze, and faintly, almost imperceptibly, a shape appears in the distance, a soft, rising darkness against the horizon, not threatening, not looming, a shoreline. A place where the waters grow shallow. A place where the ground becomes firm. A place that whispers of completion, of arrival, of gentle restoration. It is not close. Not yet. But it is there. Waiting. Steady. Holding its place like a quiet beacon for tired hearts. The traveler inhales, a deep breath filled with warmth and clarity, and feels something loosen within, the quiet understanding that the journey through the waters was never endless, never aimless, never without destination. Every step was leading here. Every breath of surrender was preparing the heart. Every moment of trust was guiding them closer to a promise shaped by divine hands. The presence beside them remains warm, steady, close as ever, not pushing the traveler forward, not urging them ahead, simply standing with them, sharing the moment, letting them feel the beauty of hope rising gently like the shoreline in the distance. The current moves softly around their legs, light, almost playful, as if even the water knows its purpose is nearing completion, as if the river has fulfilled its role, not to drown, not to overwhelm, but to reveal, to refine, to lead. The traveler watches the faint silhouette of land grow clearer, outlines soft beneath moonlight, edges shaped by shadows that seem to hold a promise of rest, of restoration, of firm ground beneath tired feet. This is the moment the soul often forgets to expect, the moment when the end begins to reveal itself, when the long night opens into quiet dawn, when the path becomes visible after miles of mystery, when the heart finally sees what God saw from the beginning. The traveler's breath trembles gently, not with fear, but with gratitude, a gratefulness that rises like warm water within the chest, a gratefulness shaped by survival, by companionship, by the realization that God never intended the traveler to remain in these waters forever. He intended to bring them through, to guide them across, to lead them towards safe ground He prepared with care, with intention, with love. The breeze moves softly across the traveler's face, carrying the cool scent of land, the faint whisper of grass and earth waiting ahead, a whisper that says, "You are closer than you think." The traveler places a hand over their heart, feeling it beat steady, slow, anchored, feeling the warmth of God's nearness glowing beneath the skin, a warmth that has carried them through every trembling moment, every uncertain step, every rising current. They look once more toward the shoreline, and for the first time, Their spirit leans forward, not out of urgency, but out of gentle readiness, a readiness shaped by trust, by rest, by the quiet knowledge that God is guiding them not only through the waters, but toward the promise beyond them. The traveler breathes out slowly, letting peace flow through every part of their being, letting hope settle into the soft spaces within, letting their eyes linger on the land that waits, the land God saw the moment they stepped into the river. The waters continue to move. The night continues to hold. The promise continues to rise. And the traveler stands with a heart full of quiet anticipation, knowing the journey is not over, but the destination has begun to show its gentle outline. The traveler moves slowly toward the rising shoreline, the river still flowing around their legs in slow, moonlit currents, the night holding its deep calm, and ahead, the faint shape of land grows clearer with every quiet step, a soft silhouette becoming a promise becoming a destination becoming a gentle reality. The traveler breathes in, feeling the air grow warmer, not from the absence of water, but from the nearness of completion, from the tender shift that happens when God begins leading a soul out of the depths, toward rest, toward safety, toward solid ground. The presence beside them remains steady, a warmth that has not dimmed, not for a moment, a nearness that has carried the traveler through fear, through weakness, through whispering doubts, through deep places where peace became the breath they learned to trust. Now that same presence guides them toward shore, not with urgency, not with pressure, but with the same gentle pace that has shaped the entire journey, soft, unhurried, faithful. The traveler can feel the riverbed lifting beneath their feet, very slowly at first, a subtle rise, a slight shallowing of the depth around their legs, the kind of change only noticed by a soul that has spent long enough learning the feel of deep water. The traveler pauses, letting the moment settle, letting the realization seep into their spirit. The waters are receding. The journey is shifting. The depth is giving way to promise. The moon reflects gently across the shallower ripples, and the surface shimmers like a quiet blessing poured over the traveler's path, not as a farewell from the river, but as a benediction, a gentle acknowledgement that God has kept every step, every breath, every trembling moment along the way. The traveler takes another step. The water dips just below the knees, and inside, a warm wave of gratitude rises, not sudden, not overwhelming, but slow, glowing, like morning light stretching across a still valley. This is what deliverance feels like, not always dramatic, not always thunderous, but gentle, patient, tender, a slow leading from deep water to firm ground by a God who refuses to rush a healing heart. The traveler notices how peaceful the river has become, how quiet the night feels, how calm the breeze moves, as if creation itself is escorting them toward rest, toward restoration, toward a new beginning shaped by God's faithful hand. The shoreline glows softly under the moon, rising like a promise finally kept, firm, warm, beckoning the traveler forward with quiet assurance. This is where the journey changes. This is where the soul steps into what God has prepared beyond the waters. The traveler's feet touch higher ground beneath the surface, a firmer foundation, a steadier path, the river letting go gently, the current weakening without resistance, as if bowing in reverence to the presence guiding the traveler out. Step by slow step, the water lowers around their calves, then around their ankles, cool streams releasing their hold, not in abandonment, but in fulfillment. The river has completed its holy purpose. The traveler finally steps out of the water, feet sinking softly into damp earth, warm, solid, real, a sensation that feels like exhaling after a long season of breathing carefully. They stand on the shoreline, moonlight touching the ground at their feet, cool night air brushing their skin, the river flowing gently behind, and before them, a quiet stretch of land shaped by God's love, a place of restoration, a place of renewal, a place where the soul can finally rest after the deep. The traveler turns back toward the water for a moment, not in fear, not in longing, but in gratitude for the journey, for the lessons, for the quiet revelations that surfaced in the deep, for the strength that came through weakness, for the peace that settled deeper than the river's reach, for the God who walked with them, carried them, and delivered them through every rising current. Then they turn forward, toward the land God has prepared, toward the next chapter written by His faithfulness, toward rest after the journey, toward sleep, toward peace that lingers long after the waters fade. The night holds them gently, the present surrounds them still, and peace settles over the traveler like a warm blanket, soft, tender, complete. You have passed through the waters. You have not been overwhelmed. You have been carried, held, delivered, loved beyond measure. May your heart rest in this truth as you drift into sleep, wrapped in the quiet of God's unfailing nearness, and the promise that He will carry you through every river still ahead.